In the vast and mysterious world of Pokémon, there exists a special classification of creatures that stand apart from all others, neither fully legendary nor ordinary, but dwelling in that ethereal space between mortal and divine. These are the pseudo-legendary Pokémon, beings of immense power and rarity that have captured the imagination of trainers and researchers for generations. As we drift into this gentle exploration of their secrets, let your mind wander through the misty mountains and ancient forests where these magnificent creatures make their homes. The very term pseudo-legendary was coined by devoted Pokemon researchers who noticed a peculiar pattern among certain species. These remarkable creatures share specific characteristics that set them apart from their peers, most notably their base stat total of exactly 600 points, a number that seems to hold special significance in the natural order of the Pokemon world. This statistical harmony suggests an almost mathematical perfection in their design, as if nature itself sought to create beings of optimal balance and power. Our journey begins with Dragonite, the first pseudo-legendary ever discovered, a gentle giant whose orange and cream-colored form belies its incredible strength. Despite its bulky appearance, Dragonite possesses the remarkable ability to circle the globe in just 16 hours, its small wings somehow defying the laws of physics as it soars through clouds and across vast oceans. This paradox of form and function has puzzled scientists for decades, yet Dragonite continues its eternal dance through the skies, unburdened by such earthly concerns as aerodynamics. Deep within the dragon's den, where the air shimmers with ancient energy, young Dratini begin their long journey toward evolution. These serpentine creatures spend their early years shedding their skin repeatedly, each molting bringing them closer to their ultimate form. The process is slow and methodical, requiring patience that spans decades, for a Dragonite may live for centuries, watching over coastal communities and guiding lost ships through treacherous waters, with the wisdom that comes only with age. In the Hoenn region, where volcanic peaks pierce the clouds and ancient secrets slumber beneath the earth, we encounter Metagross, a being born from the fusion of two Beldum that have achieved perfect synchronization. This steel and psychic type represents the pinnacle of mechanical evolution, its four massive legs moving with calculated precision as its supercomputer brain processes information at speeds that dwarf even the most advanced human technology. The magnetic fields generated by Metagross are so powerful that they can interfere with electronic devices from great distances, creating zones of technological silence wherever this metallic giant roams. The creation of a Metagross is a process that unfolds over many years, beginning when two Beldum, those mysterious creatures that appear to be living magnets, find one another and begin their slow dance of convergence. As they orbit each other, their magnetic fields gradually align until they achieve a perfect harmonic resonance, at which point they fuse into the intermediate form known as Metang. This dual-brained entity then seeks out another Metang, and the process repeats, creating the four-brained collective consciousness that is Metagross. Salamence tells a different story entirely, one of dreams and determination that spans the ages. Born as the tiny Bagon, these creatures harbor an inexplicable desire to fly, despite their complete inability to do so in their initial form. Day after day, young Bagon will leap from cliffs and tall trees, their heads growing harder with each failed attempt as their skulls adapt to the repeated impacts. This seemingly futile behavior continues for years, driven by an instinctual knowledge that flight is their destiny, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. The transformation from the earthbound Bagon to the magnificent flying dragon Salamence represents one of nature's most dramatic metamorphoses. When evolution finally occurs, the creature's entire body structure changes, wings sprouting from its back as if materializing from pure will and desire. The joy that Salamence experiences upon finally achieving flight is said to be so intense that it can barely contain its emotions, leading to the destructive rampages for which this species is known. In the frozen wastelands of Sinnoh, where glaciers groan under their own weight and aurora lights paint the sky in ethereal colors, dwells Garchomp, the Mach Pokémon. This dragon and ground type moves through its environment with the fluid grace of a shark cutting through ocean currents, its body perfectly adapted for high-speed movement, both above and below ground. The distinctive fin-like appendages on Garchomp's arms are not merely decorative, but serve as sophisticated sensory organs, detecting minute vibrations in the air that allow it to navigate with precision even in complete darkness. Garchomp's relationship with speed is almost mystical in nature. When it extends its wings and begins to run, it can achieve velocities that approach the speed of sound, creating sonic booms that echo across mountain valleys. Yet despite this incredible power, Garchomp maintains perfect control, able to change direction instantaneously without losing momentum. This mastery over motion has made it a subject of study for aeronautics researchers, though the secrets of its propulsion remain largely mysterious. The evolutionary line that leads to Garchomp begins with Gible, small dragon types that make their homes in caves warmed by geothermal energy. These creatures have an unusual relationship with temperature, preferring environments that would be uncomfortably warm for most other Pokémon. As they evolve into Gabite and eventually Garchomp, their tolerance for extreme conditions only increases, allowing them to thrive in environments ranging from scorching deserts to frozen tundra. Hydreigon represents perhaps the most complex and troubled of all pseudo-legendary Pokémon, a dark and dragon type whose very existence seems to embody the concept of destructive force barely contained by natural law. Beginning life as the seemingly innocent dino, these creatures are born blind, relying entirely on their other senses to navigate the world. This early blindness shapes their development in profound ways, creating a species that views the world through different perceptual filters than most other Pokémon. The evolution from Dino to Zweilous marks a crucial transition, as the creature literally grows a second head, each with its own personality and desires. These dual minds do not always agree, leading to internal conflicts that manifest as seemingly random, aggressive behavior. The heads compete for food, attention, and dominance, creating a constant state of tension that drives the creature to consume vast quantities of food in an attempt to satisfy both consciousnesses. When Zweilous finally evolves into Hydreigon, a third head emerges, but rather than adding to the chaos, this central consciousness seems to bring order to the competing impulses of its companions. The side heads lose their ability to think independently, becoming extensions of the central mind's will. This transformation typically occurs only after the creature reaches level 64, making Hydreigon one of the latest evolving Pokemon in existence, a testament to the complex developmental processes required to achieve such a sophisticated form. The wings of Hydreigon are not true wings in the traditional sense, but rather modified arms that have evolved to serve dual purposes. They retain enough dexterity to grasp objects and manipulate the environment while also providing the lift necessary for flight. This adaptation represents millions of years of evolutionary pressure, creating a creature that is equally at home stalking through dense forests or soaring above cloud layers. From the Kalos region comes Goodra, a pseudo-legendary that breaks many of the patterns established by its predecessors. This dragon type begins its journey as Gumi, often called the weakest dragon type Pokemon, a humble creature that resembles little more than a purple blob. Yet within this unassuming form lies the potential for greatness, as Gumi possesses an incredibly efficient cellular structure that allows it to absorb moisture from its environment with remarkable effectiveness. The slime that coats Goodra's body is far more sophisticated than it appears, containing complex proteins and enzymes that serve multiple functions. This biological coating provides protection from both physical attacks and environmental hazards, while also serving as a sensory medium that allows Goodra to detect chemical changes in its surroundings with extraordinary precision. The slime can be controlled, becoming harder than steel when threatened, or remaining soft and welcoming when the creature feels safe. Goodra's gentle nature sets it apart from most other pseudo-legendary Pokemon, as it actively seeks to avoid conflict whenever possible. This peaceful disposition has led to numerous accounts of Goodra forming unlikely friendships with other Pokemon species, often serving as protectors for smaller creatures that seek shelter in the humid environments where Goodra typically makes its home. The bond between a Goodra and its trainer is said to be particularly strong, as the creature's empathetic nature allows it to sense and respond to human emotions with remarkable sensitivity. The tears that Goodra sheds are not merely expressions of emotion, but serve important biological functions, helping to maintain the delicate pH balance of its slime coating while also communicating complex chemical signals to other members of its species. These tears contain trace minerals absorbed from the environment, creating a unique chemical signature that can convey information about the creature's health, emotional state, and even recent travels across different terrains. The antennae-like protrusions on Goodra's head are incredibly sensitive organs that can detect minute changes in humidity, temperature, and atmospheric pressure, allowing the creature to predict weather patterns with uncanny accuracy. In the Alola region, we encounter Kommo-o, a pseudo-legendary that embodies the warrior spirit through its unique sound-based abilities and dragon fighting dual typing. The scales that cover Kommo-o's body are not merely protective armor, but sophisticated acoustic instruments, each one precisely shaped and positioned to produce specific tones when struck or vibrated. These scales grow throughout the creature's lifetime, with older Kommo-o developing increasingly complex scale patterns that allow for more nuanced musical expressions. The sound produced by Kommo-o's scales serves multiple purposes, from intimidating potential threats to communicating with distant members of its species across vast mountain ranges. The evolution from Jangmo-o through Hakamo-o to Kommo-o represents a gradual mastery of both martial arts and acoustic warfare. Young Jangmo-o begin their training by learning to control the rhythm and volume of their scale clinking, developing the discipline and focus that will serve them throughout their lives. As they evolve into Kommo-o, they begin to incorporate more complex movements and techniques, their scales growing larger and more resonant. The transformation into Kommo-o marks the achievement of true mastery, as the creature gains the ability to produce sounds powerful enough to shatter stone or gentle enough to lull infant Pokemon to sleep. The martial traditions associated with Kommo-o have been passed down through generations, with each individual learning ancient forms and techniques from their elders. These fighting styles incorporate elements of rhythm, timing, and spatial awareness that reflect the creature's dual nature as both warrior and musician. The training grounds where Kommo-o practice their arts are often marked by distinctive wear patterns in the stone, created by countless generations of practitioners perfecting their techniques. From the Galar region emerges Dragapult, a pseudo-legendary that represents one of the most unusual evolutionary concepts ever documented. This ghost dragon type begins life as Dreepy, a small creature that exists in a state between the physical and spiritual realms. The journey from Dreepy through Dracloak to Dragapult tells a story of adaptation to an existence that spans multiple planes of reality. Dreepy are said to be the spirits of ancient Pokémon that once inhabited prehistoric seas, their ghostly forms retaining memories of their aquatic origins, even as they drift through the air in search of companionship. The relationship between Dragapult and the Dreepy that live within its horns represents one of nature's most remarkable symbiotic arrangements. These Dreepy are not the Dragapult's own offspring, but rather young members of the species that have been taken under the adult's protection. The horns of Dragapult serve as launching tubes, allowing the creature to fire Dreepy at incredible speeds toward distant targets. Rather than being harmed by this process, the Dreepy seem to enjoy the experience immensely, often competing with one another for the chance to be launched first. The speed at which Dragapult can propel Dreepy approaches the sound barrier, creating sonic booms that can be heard for miles across the Galar countryside. This launching mechanism serves multiple purposes, from hunting and combat to play and exercise for the young Dreepy. The precision with which Dragapult can aim and fire its passengers demonstrates an incredible level of spatial awareness and mathematical calculation, as the creature must account for wind resistance, gravity, and the movement of both itself and its target. The stealth capabilities of Dragapult are legendary even among ghost-type Pokémon, as it can phase in and out of visibility while maintaining physical coherence. This ability allows it to appear suddenly in battle situations, often catching opponents completely off guard. The creature's body seems to exist partially outside normal space-time, explaining its ability to carry Dreepy within its horns without any apparent increase in mass or volume. Turning our attention to the unique case of Haxorus, while not technically a pseudo-legendary due to its base stat total, this dragon type deserves mention for its incredible evolutionary journey and the role it plays in dragon type ecology. The tusks of Haxorus are composed of a material harder than diamond, growing continuously throughout the creature's lifetime. These tusks serve as both weapons and tools, capable of cutting through steel beams or delicately carving intricate patterns in wood. The maintenance of these tusks requires constant use, as they will become dangerously overgrown if not regularly worn down through activity. The territorial behavior of Haxorus reflects the creature's need for adequate space to practice and maintain its combat skills. Each individual claims a territory that includes various materials of different hardness levels, from soft earth for practice cuts to iron ore deposits for maintaining tusk sharpness. The boundaries of these territories are marked by distinctive slash patterns cut into trees and rocks, serving as both warnings to intruders and demonstrations of the resident's skill level. The relationship between pseudo-legendary Pokémon and their environments extends far beyond simple habitat preferences, as these creatures often serve as keystone species that shape entire ecosystems through their presence and activities. Dragonite, for example, plays a crucial role in oceanic weather patterns through its ability to circle the globe in just 16 hours. The air currents created by its passage help distribute heat and moisture across vast distances, contributing to the stability of global climate systems. The migratory patterns of pseudo-legendary Pokémon often span entire continents, with individuals following ancient routes that have been used by their species for thousands of years. These migration corridors serve as highways for other Pokémon species as well, creating temporary communities of diverse creatures that travel together for mutual protection and benefit. The timing of these migrations is often synchronized with seasonal changes, lunar cycles, and other natural phenomena that affect the availability of food and suitable nesting sites. The longevity of pseudo-legendary Pokémon means that individual creatures may witness the rise and fall of human civilizations, serving as living repositories of historical knowledge. Ancient texts from various regions contain references to specific legendary Pokémon that were known to interact with human communities across multiple generations, suggesting lifespans that may extend for centuries or even millennia. The breeding habits of pseudo-legendary Pokémon remain largely mysterious, as these events are rarely witnessed by humans and occur infrequently even by Pokémon standards. The lengthy developmental periods required to reach maturity mean that pseudo-legendary populations grow very slowly, making each individual precious to the continuation of their species. The few documented cases of pseudo-legendary breeding suggest elaborate courtship rituals that may last for months or even years before successful mating occurs. The courtship displays of these magnificent creatures involve demonstrations of power and grace that transform entire landscapes into stages for their ancient dances. Salamence pairs have been observed creating spiraling thermal columns that reach heights of several miles, their synchronized flight patterns generating atmospheric phenomena that can be seen from great distances. The female evaluates not only the male's aerial prowess, but also his ability to maintain perfect formation while navigating increasingly complex wind currents and temperature gradients. These courtship flights often conclude with the creation of temporary nesting sites carved into cliff sides, where the precise angles and depths of the excavations serve as further evidence of the male's suitability as a partner. The nesting behaviors of pseudo-legendary Pokémon reveal an intricate understanding of geological processes and environmental conditions that surpass even human scientific knowledge. Garchomp females select nesting sites based on underground thermal activity, magnetic field variations, and seismic stability, creating nurseries that remain perfectly climate controlled throughout the extended incubation periods. The eggs of these creatures require specific temperature fluctuations and humidity levels that mirror the conditions found in their ancestral environments, necessitating locations where natural geothermal activity provides the precise thermal cycling needed for proper development. The protective instincts of pseudo-legendary parents extend far beyond the typical behaviors observed in other Pokémon species. Metagross pairs establish complex defensive perimeters around their nesting areas, using their psychic abilities to create invisible barriers that redirect the attention of potential threats. These mental shields operate on multiple levels of consciousness, causing smaller creatures to simply lose interest in approaching the area while triggering active avoidance behaviors in larger predators. The sophistication of these defenses suggests a level of psychological manipulation that borders on the supernatural, with the protective parents able to influence the thoughts and emotions of intruders from distances of several kilometers. The dietary requirements of pseudo-legendary Pokémon during their growth phases demand access to rare minerals and energy sources that are not readily available in most environments. Young Larvitar require specific iron-rich soils that contain trace amounts of rare earth elements, consuming entire hillsides over the course of their development. The digestive processes of these creatures break down complex mineral compounds at the molecular level, extracting not only nutritional value, but also incorporating these materials into their developing exoskeletons and internal structures. This biological alchemy transforms common geological materials into the extraordinary substances that compose their adult forms. The social hierarchies that emerge when multiple pseudo-legendary Pokémon inhabit overlapping territories reflect complex systems of respect and recognition based on age, experience, and demonstrated capabilities, rather than simple dominance through force. Elder Dragonites serve as mediators in disputes between younger individuals, using their vast experience and natural charisma to resolve conflicts before they escalate to potentially destructive confrontations. These arbitration sessions often take place in neutral territories, such as isolated mountain peaks or deep ocean trenches, locations that hold special significance in the cultural memory of these ancient species. The seasonal behaviors of pseudo-legendary Pokémon align with natural cycles in ways that reveal their deep connection to the fundamental forces that govern planetary systems. Hydreigon populations exhibit increased activity during periods of high solar radiation, their dark-type energies somehow drawing power from the interaction between cosmic rays and the planet's magnetic field. During these peak energy periods, they engage in complex territorial displays that involve the manipulation of electromagnetic fields on a scale that can interfere with human technology across wide areas. The healing abilities possessed by many pseudo-legendary Pokémon extend beyond simple regeneration to encompass a form of biological restoration that can reverse damage at the cellular level. Goodra secretions contain enzymes and proteins that can repair genetic damage caused by radiation exposure, environmental toxins, and age-related deterioration. The application of these healing compounds requires precise timing and dosage, as the same substances that can restore health in small quantities become overwhelmingly potent in larger amounts, potentially accelerating biological processes to dangerous speeds. The memory capabilities of pseudo-legendary Pokémon appear to operate on principles that transcend individual consciousness, with evidence suggesting that important experiences and knowledge can be passed down through generations via methods that science has yet to fully understand. Metagross networks have been observed sharing complex mathematical calculations and problem solving strategies instantaneously across vast distances, implying a form of collective intelligence that persists even when individual units are separated by continents and oceans. The relationship between pseudo legendary Pokemon and natural disasters reveals these creatures' roles as both harbingers and mitigators of catastrophic events. Garchomp populations often begin exhibiting unusual migration patterns weeks before major seismic events. Their sensitivity to underground pressure changes and tectonic stress providing early warning systems for communities wise enough to observe and interpret these signals. Similarly, the flight patterns of Salamence flocks can predict volcanic eruptions with remarkable accuracy. Their ability to detect minute changes in atmospheric chemistry and thermal gradients serving as natural monitoring systems for geological instability. The nocturnal activities of many pseudo-legendary species involve behaviors that remain largely hidden from human observation, but play crucial roles in maintaining ecological balance. Hydreigon conduct mysterious flights during the darkest hours of the night, following routes that connect distant locations where their presence somehow stabilizes local weather patterns and prevents the formation of destructive storm systems. The energy they expend during these journeys appears to be absorbed by the atmosphere itself, creating subtle but measurable changes in air pressure and humidity that influence weather development across entire regions. The symbiotic relationships formed between pseudo-legendary Pokémon and other species often involve exchanges of resources and services that benefit entire ecosystems. Metagross colonies provide protection and computational assistance to communities of smaller Pokémon in exchange for help with tasks that require fine motor control and access to confined spaces. These partnerships can persist for decades, with successive generations of smaller Pokémon inheriting their roles in these cooperative arrangements and learning specialized skills that enhance their value as partners to their powerful protectors. The seasonal molting processes of armored pseudo-legendary species produce materials that possess properties coveted by both Pokémon and human craftsmen. The shed scales of Tyranitar contain crystalline structures that maintain their incredible durability even after separation from the living creature, making them prized components for the creation of tools and protective equipment. However, these materials can only be ethically obtained through voluntary shedding, as forcible removal damages both the scales and the creature, resulting in inferior materials that lack the unique properties that make them so valuable. The geological impact of pseudo-legendary Pokémon extends far beyond their immediate habitats, with their presence creating lasting changes to the fundamental structure of the Earth itself. Tyranitar's movements through mountainous regions gradually reshape entire landscapes over centuries, their passage creating networks of caves and tunnels that eventually become underground rivers and mineral deposits. The pressure exerted by their footsteps compresses sedimentary layers in specific patterns that enhance the formation of precious stones and rare earth elements, making regions frequented by Tyranitar some of the most geologically rich areas on the planet. These changes occur so gradually that they appear natural to casual observation, yet careful study reveals the deliberate nature of these modifications and their beneficial effects on local ecosystems. The magnetic fields generated by Metagross during their deep computational states create lasting alterations to the metallic composition of surrounding rocks and soil. Areas where Metagross have resided for extended periods develop enhanced conductivity and unique crystalline formations that continue to exhibit unusual properties long after the creatures have departed. These magnetic signatures can be detected decades later, serving as historical markers that help researchers track the movements and population changes of these elusive creatures across geological timescales. The fields also appear to influence the growth patterns of certain plant species, encouraging the development of root systems that follow the magnetic pathways and create underground networks that enhance soil stability and water retention. Salamence establish aerial territories that span vast distances, with individual dragons maintaining flight routes that can encompass thousands of square miles. These territories often overlap with those of other salamence, creating complex three-dimensional maps of shared airspace where different individuals have established specific altitude ranges and flight times to avoid conflicts. The boundaries of these territories shift seasonally as weather patterns change and food sources migrate, requiring constant communication and negotiation between neighboring dragons to maintain peaceful coexistence. Younger Salamence spend years learning these intricate territorial arrangements, following experienced adults to memorize the countless landmarks and atmospheric conditions that define the boundaries of their inherited domains. The hibernation cycles of certain pseudo-legendary species involve physiological changes so profound that they essentially enter a state resembling suspended animation for months at a time. Garchomp burrow deep into mountain faces during the coldest months, their metabolic rates lowing to nearly imperceptible levels, while their bodies undergo cellular regeneration processes that repair accumulated damage from their intense battles and high-energy lifestyle. During this dormant period, their scales develop enhanced thickness, and their internal organs restructure themselves to accommodate the increased power demands they will face upon awakening. The locations chosen for these hibernation sites become permanently altered by the process, with the surrounding rock taking on properties that make it resistant to erosion and seismic damage. Hydreigon's relationship with darkness extends beyond mere preference for nighttime activity, as these creatures appear to draw sustenance directly from the absence of light itself. Their bodies contain specialized organs that can convert shadow into usable energy, allowing them to remain active and healthy, even in environments completely devoid of traditional food sources. This ability makes them invaluable guardians of deep caves and underground chambers where other creatures could not survive, and their presence in these locations often coincides with the preservation of ancient artifacts and geological formations that would otherwise deteriorate over time. The energy conversion process produces no waste products, making Hydreigon among the most environmentally efficient creatures in existence. The social hierarchies within pseudo-legendary communities follow patterns that reflect both individual strength and collective wisdom, with leadership roles often rotating based on the specific challenges facing the group at any given time. Metagross clusters may defer to the individual with the greatest computational capacity when solving complex problems, while physical challenges might elevate a different member to temporary leadership based on their superior processing speed or mechanical capabilities. Those flexible leadership structures allow pseudo-legendary communities to adapt quickly to changing circumstances while ensuring that every member's unique abilities are utilized effectively for the benefit of the group. Temperature regulation in pseudo-legendary Pokémon involves mechanisms that extend far beyond simple adaptation to environmental conditions. Salamence can adjust their internal temperature across a range that spans nearly 200 degrees, allowing them to survive in Arctic conditions one day and volcanic environments the next, without any apparent discomfort or physiological stress. This temperature control is achieved through specialized blood vessels that can expand or contract to regulate heat distribution, combined with metabolic processes that can shift between different energy sources depending on thermal requirements. The ability to maintain optimal body temperature in extreme conditions gives these creatures access to habitats and resources unavailable to other species. The nesting behaviors of flying pseudo-legendary species create architectural marvels that serve multiple generations and often become permanent features of the landscape. Salamence construct their nests using a combination of carefully selected stones, metals, and organic materials that they fuse together through controlled application of their fiery breath. The resulting structures possess incredible durability and are designed with complex internal chambers that provide optimal conditions for egg incubation while offering protection from predators and environmental hazards. These nests often become gathering places for other dragon-type Pokémon who recognize the superior construction and seek permission to establish their own smaller nests in the vicinity. The dietary requirements of pseudo-legendary Pokémon include not only conventional nutrients, but also specific minerals and energy sources that must be obtained from rare geological formations or atmospheric phenomena. Metagross require regular consumption of certain metallic compounds that can only be found in meteorites or deep within the Earth's crust, necessitating extensive travel to locate suitable feeding grounds. Their ability to detect these materials from great distances suggests sensory capabilities that operate on frequencies beyond the range of conventional electromagnetic detection, possibly involving quantum mechanical processes that allow them to perceive the atomic structure of distant objects. Garchomp's relationship with underground water sources reveals their role as natural hydrologists who help maintain the flow of subterranean rivers and aquifers. Their tunneling activities create pathways that allow water to reach areas that would otherwise remain dry, and their ability to sense optimal locations for these channels suggests an intuitive understanding of geological hydrology that surpasses human engineering capabilities. The tunnels they create often become permanent water routes that support entire ecosystems, with the initial excavation work done by Garchomp providing the foundation for complex underground environments that persist for centuries. The regenerative abilities of pseudo-legendary Pokémon extend to their capacity for regrowing lost appendages and healing severe injuries through processes that appear to violate conventional biological limitations. Hydreigon can regenerate entire heads if necessary, with the new growth retaining all the memories and personality traits of the original, suggesting that their consciousness is distributed throughout their body rather than centralized in a single location. This regenerative capacity requires enormous energy expenditure and can only be accomplished when the creature has access to specific environmental conditions and nutrient sources that facilitate the complex cellular reconstruction process. The acoustic properties of pseudo-legendary vocalizations serve purposes that extend far beyond simple communication, with their calls creating resonance patterns that can influence weather formation and geological stability across wide areas. Salamence roars contain frequencies that can trigger controlled avalanches to clear unstable snow formations before they become dangerous, while also encouraging the formation of thermal updrafts that assist other flying creatures in their aerial navigation. The precision required to produce these specific acoustic effects suggests that pseudo-legendary Pokémon possess detailed understanding of atmospheric physics and use their vocalizations as tools for environmental management. Seasonal migration patterns among pseudo-legendary populations involve coordinated movements that span multiple continents and require precise timing to avoid conflicts with other powerful species. These migrations follow routes established over millennia, with stopping points located at sites that provide optimal conditions for rest and resource gathering. The timing of these movements appears to be synchronized with cosmic events such as planetary alignments and solar activity cycles, suggesting that pseudo-legendary Pokémon navigate using celestial references and possess internal chronometers that operate on astronomical timescales rather than simple circadian rhythms. The electromagnetic fields generated by pseudo-legendary Pokémon create invisible networks that span vast distances, forming communication channels that operate independently of physical barriers and atmospheric conditions. These bioelectric networks allow for instantaneous information transfer between individuals separated by thousands of miles, with each species maintaining its own unique frequency signature that prevents interference from other electromagnetic sources. Metagross colonies utilize these networks to share computational resources, effectively creating distributed processing systems that can solve complex problems requiring calculations beyond the capacity of any single individual. The mathematical principles underlying these shared consciousness networks involve quantum entanglement phenomena that enable synchronized thought processes across multiple organisms, allowing them to function as components of a larger collective intelligence while maintaining their individual autonomy and decision-making capabilities. The geological impact of pseudo-legendary habitation extends deep into the Earth's crust, where their presence influences mineral formation and tectonic stability through mechanisms that operate on geological timescales. Tyranider populations create pressure chambers within mountain ranges that serve as natural laboratories for crystal formation with the specific gravitational and electromagnetic conditions they generate, producing unique mineral structures found nowhere else in nature. These formations often contain trace elements that possess unusual properties, including enhanced conductivity and magnetic resonance characteristics that suggest the presence of exotic matter created through processes involving high energy particle interactions. The long term effects of pseudo legendary habitation can be detected in geological strata millions of years after their departure, with distinctive mineral signatures serving as evidence of their historical presence in regions where they no longer reside. Temperature regulation mechanisms in pseudo legendary Pokemon involve sophisticated heat exchange systems that allow them to maintain optimal body temperatures regardless of environmental conditions. Dragonite possesses specialized circulatory adaptations that can redirect blood flow to create localized heating or cooling zones within their body, enabling them to generate warm microclimates for smaller creatures while simultaneously maintaining ice cold storage chambers for preserving food supplies. These thermal management systems require precise control of metabolic processes and involve the manipulation of cellular respiration rates in specific tissue regions, creating temperature gradients that can span more than 50 degrees Celsius within a single organism. The energy efficiency of these systems approaches theoretical limits, with waste heat being captured and redirected through secondary circulation networks that prevent any thermal energy from being lost to the environment. The symbiotic relationships between pseudo legendary Pokemon and microscopic organisms create complex ecosystems within their bodies that contribute to their extraordinary abilities and longevity. Garchomp hosts specialized bacteria in their digestive system that can process raw minerals and convert them into bioavailable nutrients, allowing them to derive sustenance from sources that would be toxic to most other life forms. These microbial partners have evolved alongside their hosts over millions of years, developing unique metabolic pathways that can break down complex compounds and synthesize rare amino acids required for maintaining the creature's enhanced physical capabilities. The bacterial colonies also serve as biological factories for producing specialized compounds used in healing and regeneration, with different bacterial strains activated in response to specific injury types or environmental stresses. Gravitational anomalies surrounding certain pseudo-legendary Pokemon suggest that their mass distribution operates according to principles that extend beyond conventional physics, with localized alterations to space-time curvature occurring in their immediate vicinity. Metagross individuals have been observed creating zones where the apparent force of gravity is reduced by measurable amounts, allowing them to achieve impossible feats of levitation and manipulation of massive objects with minimal energy expenditure. These gravitational effects appear to be generated through the controlled manipulation of their internal mass distribution, with dense metallic components being repositioned within their body to create asymmetric gravitational fields that can be precisely directed and modulated. The theoretical implications of these abilities suggest that pseudo-legendary Pokemon may possess an intuitive understanding of general relativity and can manipulate fundamental forces through biological processes that science has yet to fully comprehend. The reproductive cycles of pseudo-legendary species involve elaborate courtship rituals that can span multiple seasons and require the coordination of environmental factors across vast geographical regions. Salamence mating displays involve synchronized aerial performances conducted at specific atmospheric pressure levels and magnetic field orientations that occur only during rare celestial alignments. These courtship flights create temporary weather patterns that can influence local climate conditions for weeks afterward, with the electromagnetic disturbances generated by their movements triggering changes in precipitation patterns and atmospheric circulation. The timing of these reproductive events appears to be linked to cosmic radiation cycles and solar magnetic field variations, suggesting that pseudo-legendary Pokémon can detect and respond to astronomical phenomena that remain largely invisible to human scientific instruments. Memory storage mechanisms in pseudo-legendary Pokémon involve neural architectures that can preserve information across multiple generations through genetic encoding of experiential data. Hydreigon offspring inherit not only their parents' physical characteristics, but also compressed versions of their memories and learned behaviors, creating an evolutionary advantage that allows each generation to build upon the accumulated knowledge of their predecessors. This biological information storage system operates through modifications to DNA structure that can encode complex behavioral patterns and environmental knowledge without interfering with normal genetic functions. The capacity of these memory systems appears to be virtually unlimited, with some individuals carrying encoded experiences that date back thousands of years and encompass detailed knowledge of geographical changes, climate patterns, and ecosystem dynamics across multiple continents. The healing properties of pseudo-legendary presence extend to the restoration of damaged ecosystems through processes that accelerate natural recovery mechanisms and introduce beneficial organisms that assist in environmental rehabilitation. Areas where Dragonite have established long-term residence show enhanced biodiversity and accelerated plant growth rates that persist for decades after their departure. Their bioelectric fields appear to stimulate cellular regeneration in plants and promote the development of beneficial soil microorganisms that improve nutrient cycling and water retention. These environmental healing effects operate through complex biochemical cascades that begin with electromagnetic stimulation of plant root systems and extend to modifications in soil chemistry that create optimal conditions for ecological succession and habitat restoration. The navigation abilities of pseudo-legendary Pokémon involve multisensory systems that can detect and interpret environmental cues operating across multiple scales simultaneously, from molecular chemical gradients to planetary magnetic field variations. Garchomp can navigate through underground tunnel networks by sensing minute variations in mineral composition and groundwater flow patterns, while also maintaining awareness of surface weather conditions and celestial positioning through detection methods that remain largely mysterious. Their navigation accuracy approaches perfection even in completely unfamiliar territories, suggesting that they possess internal mapping systems that can rapidly process and integrate diverse environmental data to construct detailed spatial representations of their surroundings. These navigation capabilities appear to improve with age and experience, indicating that pseudo-legendary Pokémon continue to develop and refine their sensory processing abilities throughout their extended lifespans. Their sleep patterns reveal equally fascinating adaptations, as pseudo-legendary species enter states of rest that simultaneously maintain environmental awareness while allowing complete physiological renewal. Salamence achieves this through hemispheric sleep, where one brain hemisphere remains partially active while the other rests, a trait shared with certain marine mammals. This allows them to detect approaching threats even during periods of deep sleep, while their cellular repair mechanisms operate at maximum efficiency. The slow, rhythmic pulsing of their wing membranes during these rest cycles creates gentle air currents that help regulate their body temperature and maintain optimal oxygen flow to their tissues. Their dreams appear to be intensely vivid and may serve as cognitive training sessions, with observed muscle twitches corresponding to imagined flight maneuvers or combat scenarios that help reinforce learned behaviors during waking hours. The emotional intelligence of these Pokemon manifests in their care for younger or weaker creatures, with Metagross often observed carefully manipulating objects with their psychic abilities to assist smaller Pokemon in reaching food or shelter. This nurturing behavior extends beyond their own species and appears to be instinctual rather than learned, suggesting deep evolutionary roots in their social development. Their capacity for empathy may be linked to advanced mirror neuron systems that allow them to instinctively understand the emotional states of other beings, even across species barriers. These neurological adaptations create bonds that can last for centuries, with documented cases of pseudo-legendaries recognizing and greeting human companions decades after their last encounter, their precise memories undimmed by the passage of time. Their vocalizations form another layer of complexity, with low-frequency communication methods that can transmit across vast distances. Tyranidar's seismic calls travel through the Earth itself, allowing them to coordinate with others of their kind, even when separated by mountainous terrain. Those infrasound signals carry nuanced emotional content, from warnings of danger to expressions of reassurance, and can propagate for miles without losing clarity. Dragonite's melodic hums, meanwhile, have been found to stabilize weather patterns in their immediate vicinity, with certain tonal frequencies calming turbulent winds or dispersing storm clouds through harmonic resonance with atmospheric pressure waves. These sonic abilities may have originated as hunting adaptations, but now serve broader ecological purposes, helping to maintain balance in the regions they inhabit. The thermodynamics of their bodies present yet another marvel, as their internal temperatures remain stable regardless of external conditions. Even in sub-zero environments, Goodra's gelatinous coating prevents freezing, maintaining flexibility through complex antifreeze glycoproteins that inhibit ice crystal formation at a molecular level. Conversely, in volcanic regions, their bodies effortlessly dissipate excess heat through specialized pores that regulate thermal transfer with astonishing efficiency. This thermal regulation extends to their immediate surroundings. Wherever a pseudo-legendary rests, the microclimate around them stabilizes, creating pockets of temperate conditions even in otherwise hostile environments. Their very presence seems to lightly influence the laws of thermodynamics, bending nature's rules just enough to ensure their comfort and survival. Their evolutionary paths contain mysteries as well, why some individuals reach their final forms much later than others, or why certain environmental triggers accelerate or delay transformation. Some researchers believe that these variations aren't random, but rather represent an ancient adaptation, allowing populations to respond dynamically to ecological pressures. A metung exposed to prolonged periods of geomagnetic disturbance, for instance, may evolve into Metagross far sooner than one raised in stable conditions, as if their biology senses the need for greater strength in uncertain times. Thus, flexible maturation rates suggest an almost precognitive awareness of future challenges encoded in their genes through countless generations of evolutionary refinement. Even their footprints tell a story, the way a Garchomp's tread leaves barely any impression on sand, or how a Kommo-o's scales scatter light in rain to create fleeting prismatic halos. The marks they leave on the world are as subtle as they are profound, woven into the fabric of ecosystems they've touched. Their very movements seem calculated to minimize disruption, gliding through forests without snapping twigs or parting waves with barely a ripple. This effortless harmony with their surroundings hints at an intuitive understanding of physics that borders on artistry, every motion purposeful, every action balanced. And perhaps most mysteriously of all, their periodic disappearances from recorded history suggest intentional withdrawal from human awareness during certain eras. Fossil records show gaps where pseudo-legendaries seem to vanish entirely, only to reappear centuries later as if they had been waiting just beyond perception. Some scholars propose they possess methods of existing outside conventional time flow, or that they retreat to hidden sanctuaries, accessible only through means we have yet to comprehend. Whatever the truth, their comings and goings remain one of their most enigmatic traits, reminding us that for all we've learned, these majestic beings still hold secrets beyond our grasp. As night deepens and the stars turn overhead, their ancient rhythms continue, slow breaths syncing with the planet's own pulse, eyes reflecting constellations older than written memory. They are keepers of time, witnesses to epics, moving through the world with the quiet certainty of those who know their place in the great tapestry of life. And as you drift toward sleep, perhaps you might imagine their vast, quiet presence, guardians in the darkness, watching over a world they've shaped as much as it has shaped them. Their stories continue, unfolding in silent footsteps across mountain peaks, in the rush of wings through cloud valleys, in the patient turning of generations beneath the same moon that has shone down on them for millennia. Rest now, and let their long, slow history carry you into dreams as deep and enduring as they are. Their connection to celestial events runs deeper than mere symbolism. Migrations of Dragonite flocks have been documented aligning with meteor showers, their flight paths intersecting falling stars with uncanny precision. Some researchers theorize their internal compasses may sync with cosmic radiation patterns, allowing them to navigate not just by Earth's magnetic fields, but by the whisper of distant pulsars. In the high mountain caves where Garchomp nest, the walls bear faint luminescent markings that glow brightest during lunar eclipses, suggesting generations may have used these celestial events as biological calendars. The way Hydreigon's three heads track different points in the night sky simultaneously hints at an awareness of stellar motion far beyond human perception, each head maintaining focus on separate constellations as if performing some ancient astronomical calculation. The materials composing their bodies tell equally fascinating stories. The hexagonal patterning of Goodra's scales contains microscopic pores that respond to humidity changes, expanding and contracting like living barometers. When examined under magnification, the metallic sheen of Metagross's armor reveals nanoscale fractal designs resembling sacred geometry found in snowflakes and fern fronds, as if nature etched mathematical perfection into their very being. Salamance's wing membranes contain specialized cells that store sunlight as latent energy, giving their fiery breath attacks an extra intensity at dawn after absorbing the first rays of morning. Even their seemingly decorative features serve purposes we're only beginning to understand. The red crests on Tyranidar's back act as natural radiators, regulating body temperature during sandstorms by dissipating excess heat in visible infrared waves that make the air around them shimmer like a desert mirage. Their relationship with other species forms complex webs of mutualism. In the Hoenn region's cloud forests, Bagon deliberately roll off cliffs onto Tropius's banana-like fruit clusters, using the impact to ferment the fruits, a process that both softens the Bagon's head scales for eventual evolution and creates alcohol-rich fruits that attract specific insect prey. Alolan executor allow Kommo-o to sharpen their scales against their palm-like trunks, leaving behind magnesium-rich bark shavings that the dragon Pokémon instinctively rub into their hides for nutritional supplementation. There are coral reefs where Dragapult's spirit-like offspring play symbiotic games with Frillish, the ghostly young learning hunting strategies from the jellyfish Pokémon while providing protection from would-be predators. This interconnectedness suggests pseudo-legendaries don't merely dominate ecosystems, they curate them, participating in delicate biological ballets, refined over epochs. Their cognitive abilities manifest in surprising ways. Hydreigon demonstrate advanced object permanence from birth, capable of tracking up to 7 hidden items simultaneously, a skill that evolves into tactical thinking so sophisticated their battle strategies have been compared to grandmaster chess players. Metagross's 4 brains don't merely process information in parallel, they engage in what neuroscientists call competitive consensus, with different neural clusters proposing solutions that are then voted upon electrochemically. Wild Tyranitar have been observed constructing elaborate decoy nests to mislead researchers, indicating not just intelligence, but a theory of mind regarding human observation techniques. Perhaps most remarkably, elderly Dragonite in the Orange Archipelago passed down detailed migration routes through song, melodies containing subtle harmonics that correspond to underwater thermal currents, effectively encoding oceanic navigation data in musical form across generations. The artifacts they leave behind tantalize archaeologists. In the Sinnoh ruins, alternating layers of ice and volcanic ash perfectly preserve footprints showing a Kommo-o carrying what appears to be a ceremonial urn, its path intersecting with ancient human footsteps at precise geometric intervals. Excavated caves beneath Mount Moon reveal walls scarred by grooves matching Tyranitar claws, arranged in spiral patterns that coincide with phases of the moon etched alongside them. Most enigmatic of all are the dragon mirrors found in Johto's Ecritake city, polished metallic discs too large for human use their surfaces bearing microscopic wear patterns, suggesting they were manipulated by claws, possibly as part of some long forgotten communication method involving light reflection. These fragments hint at cultural depths we've scarcely glimpsed, rituals and traditions spanning timescales that dwarf recorded history. Their very presence alters environments in lasting ways. Forests where Dragonite nest show increased biodiversity for centuries after, their dropped scales leaching minerals that enrich soil composition. Deserts, frequented by Garchomp, develop unique wind patterns from their wing movements during sandstorms, carving permanent channels that become oases during rare rains. Metagross landing sites exhibit persistent, localized magnetic anomalies that affect compasses for decades, while areas where Hydreigon hunt retain faint traces of dark-type energy detectable with specialized equipment years later. These lingering effects create what ecologists call dragon echo ecosystems, places permanently imprinted by pseudo-legendary activity where the landscape remembers long after they've moved on. As seasons turn and civilizations rise and fall, they endure, not unchanged, but adapting with the slow, sure rhythm of mountains being shaped by wind and rain. A Goodra's trail through a bamboo forest may heal within days, but the calcium-rich mucus left behind nourishes next year's shoots into especially vibrant growth. The shadow of a Salamence passing overhead flashes across the ground for mere seconds, yet alters the flight paths of every bird in the valley for hours afterward. These creatures exist on temporal scales that simultaneously dwarf our own, yet intimately connect with every moment. Their claws etching history into stone, their breath stirring air that will become tomorrow's weather, their every step part of an ancient dance continuing long after our eyes have closed. So let their timeless presence lull you now as the night deepens and the stars turn in their courses, the same stars that have watched over these magnificent beings since the first dawn and will continue to do so for countless dawns yet to come. There exists a peculiar phenomenon recorded in coastal regions where Dragonite are known to migrate. Certain beaches accumulate unusually smooth, oval stones over time. Researchers discovered these aren't stones at all, but scales rubbed smooth by centuries of tidal motion, all originating from a single Dragonite colony's molting site. Fishermen in the Orange Islands whisper of finding these dragon pearls in their nets, warm to the touch even in deepest winter, and how keeping one beneath your pillow ensures dreams of flying over silver clouds. The sleeping habits of pseudo-legendaries reveal much about their unique biology. Hydreigon, despite having 3 heads, experiences synchronized sleep cycles across all its brains, a feat neurologists still struggle to explain. Infrared studies show their central head remains slightly warmer during slumber, possibly regulating the shared dream state. Kommo-o, meanwhile, builds elaborate sleeping nests from metallic debris and sheds scales that act as Faraday cages, suggesting an evolutionary need to shield themselves from electromagnetic disturbances during vulnerable rest periods. Some alpine explorers report finding these nests decades later, the metals having fused together over time into organic-looking sculptures from natural electrical discharges during thunderstorms. Metagross exhibit a form of sleep so different from organic Pokémon, it was initially mistaken for mechanical maintenance. Their 4 linked brains enter a rotating rest state, where one quadrant remains alert while others defragment memory clusters, a process creating faint, pulsating bioluminescence visible through their crystalline eyes. Trainers who've observed this describe the light patterns as resembling mathematic sequences, leading some scholars to theorize they may be reviewing the day's calculations. There are accounts from meteor shower watchers of encountering wild Metagross on high mountain plateaus, all perfectly still with their eyes cycling through identical light sequences as if communally processing some vast celestial equation. Their dietary habits equally fascinate. Tyranidar's stomach contains gastroliths, specially selected stones that aid digestion, which become polished into near perfect spheres over their lifetime. Upon a Tyranidar's passing, these stones often scatter across territories, becoming coveted by younger individuals. Some geologists propose this explains the presence of impossibly spherical boulders in certain valleys, polished across generations of Tyranitar lineages. Garchomp's eating behaviors left their mark differently. Fossilized prey bones from ancient hunting grounds show distinctive serrated marks matching their dental structure, allowing modern paleontologists to map prehistoric migration routes by following these macabre breadcrumbs through sediment layers. The liquid secreted by Goodra has 137 documented medicinal uses in traditional Johto herbalism, though modern science has only replicated 17. Aged samples in temple vaults show the substance becomes more potent over time, with a 300-year-old vial in Ecritake's museum reportedly capable of neutralizing any known poison. Alchemists once sought the dragon's tear, a mythical crystallization of this mucus formed under rare lunar conditions, believing it could halt aging. While no such crystal has ever been authenticated, lunar eclipses do cause wild Goodra's secretions to fluoresce pale blue, a phenomenon still celebrated in rural festivals with floating lanterns dyed to match this ethereal glow. Salamence present one of nature's most dramatic metamorphoses. Before evolving, Bagon have been observed deliberately hurling themselves off cliffs, not in despair, but testing their resilience against the moment of transformation. Ancient cave paintings in Hoenn depict this ritual alongside human initiates undergoing similar trials, suggesting some lost cultural parallel. Modern X-rays reveal Salamence bones contain microscopic hollow channels once thought to be weight-saving adaptations, until researchers realized they precisely align with acupressure maps used in Colossian dragon taming techniques. A serendipitous biological gift enabling deeper bonds between species. Legend speaks of a Kommo-o elder in the Ryukyu archipelago whose scales rang with the purity of temple bells when struck by monsoon rains. Local lore claimed these harmonic vibrations could heal cracked coral reefs, a notion marine biologists dismissed until studying the area's exceptionally resilient reef systems. They discovered colonies of sound-sensitive microorganisms thriving in these waters, their calcium production boosted by specific frequencies matching Kommo-o scale resonance. This created a feedback loop where the Pokemon's movements strengthened the reefs that in turn attracted prey species, a symbiotic relationship cultivated across millennia. Dragonite possess an uncanny ability to locate drowning sailors even in complete darkness or typhoon conditions. Tracking studies revealed they navigate via minuscule electrical currents in seawater created by human heartbeat signatures, a sensitivity so precise they can distinguish between species at depths exceeding 200 meters. Maritime museums display centuries old life rings bearing tooth marks where Dragonite carried them to shipwreck survivors. The saliva residue always showing faint traces of dragon type energy that seawater cannot erase. Some old shipping lanes still have higher Dragonite sightings, following routes abandoned after steam engines replaced sails, as if the creatures remember where humans most needed them. The volcanic regions where Turtonator live hold clues to pseudo legendary distribution mysteries. Lava flows preserving ash layers show alternating bands of unusually high metal concentrations corresponding to historical drought periods, exactly when Turtonator would seek mineral rich volcanic soil to supplement diminished food supplies. This created natural records of climate events through their digested deposits, like tree rings written in magnesium and iron. Prospectors during Kalos's gold rush often followed Turtonator migrations, not realizing the creatures were tracing much older paths established when the mountains themselves were still forming. Baxcalibur embody perhaps the most striking example of environmental adaptation. Their dorsal fins contain a unique protein structure that stores kinetic energy from swimming motions, later converted to thermal energy, allowing them to maintain body heat in sub-zero waters while barely eating. The same protein exists in fragmentary fossils from Ice Age strata, suggesting ancestral forms survived that frozen epoch by evolving this biological battery system. Modern researchers are attempting to synthesize the protein for sustainable energy storage, though replicating its molecular folding pattern remains elusive. Indigenous peoples of northern Galar traditionally crafted knives from shed Baxcalibur fins, the blades naturally retaining edge warmth that prevented frostbite during long hunting expeditions, a technology lost when steel replaced organic tools. As your breathing deepens and the night grows still, consider the invisible threads connecting these magnificent creatures across time and terrain. The same stars that watched ancient Garchomp carve valleys with their sandstorms now glimmer over a Metagross contemplating meteor showers. Moonlight that once glinted off Kommo-o war shields today dances across Goodra's iridescent slime trails. Every whispered legend, every scarred landscape, every inexplicable kindness to lost travelers speaks to their enduring presence, guardians not of some bygone age, but of the living, breathing world we share with them still. So let their timeless stories carry you into dreams where mountains move with dragons' patience, where oceans remember every scale that ever broke their surface, where the wind still carries echoes of wings that first learned to ride the sky's invisible currents. And as sleep takes you, know that somewhere beneath the same moon, a Dragonite is brushing clouds aside to see the stars more clearly, just as their ancestors did 1,000 generations ago, and as their descendants will 1,000 generations hence, forever part of the night's quiet wonder. In the quiet depths of slumbering Weald, where mist hangs like ancient breath between the trees, a wandering Dragapult might pause to let Dreepy investigate the phosphorescent mushrooms glowing softly on decaying logs. These bioluminescent fungi contain compounds strikingly similar to the ghostly energy that sustains Dragapult's spectral projectiles, a coincidence that has led some researchers to speculate whether the first of their line learned to harness the forest's natural glow to nourish their young. The mushroom's faint, pulsing light follows lunar cycles, with their brightest illumination occurring during the same phases when Dragapult are most active in teaching Dreepy aerial maneuvers, perhaps an evolutionary scheduling that allowed training under optimal lighting. Local folklore tells of lost travelers following these glowing paths to safety, guided by unseen Dragapult moving through the canopy above, their Dreepy swirling like will-o-wisps just beyond human sight. Beneath Alola's volcanic slopes, where the earth still whispers with creation's heat, Kommo-o scales resonate with a harmonic frequency that stabilizes loose rock, nature's answer to preventing avalanches in their mountainous territories. The hollow chambers within their scales amplify specific vibrations that compact debris into stable formations, a phenomenon first documented by geologists studying inexplicably reinforced landslide areas. Traditional Alolan architecture once incorporated fragments of shed Kommo-o scales into foundation stones, creating buildings that withstood tremors that toppled modern constructions. These practices were abandoned not due to ineffectiveness, but because the Kommo-o themselves began avoiding areas where their moltings were harvested excessively, demonstrating an understanding of sustainable coexistence that predates ecological science by centuries. The crystalline formations along Goodra's back serve a purpose far more intricate than mere protection. Each translucent node contains microscopic channels that filter rainwater into distilled hydration, an adaptation born from living in regions where acidic rainfall made ponds undrinkable. During heavy precipitation, a healthy Goodra's entire body becomes a living water purification system, with contaminated droplets being neutralized as they trickle between their crystal clusters. Botanists have noted that plants growing beneath Goodra resting sites show significantly reduced heavy metal contamination, their roots benefiting from this gentle, ongoing filtration. Some conservation projects now intentionally introduce Goodra to damaged wetlands, where their presence alone can improve water quality over time, a quiet remediation that requires no human intervention beyond providing them space to exist. Hydreigon's notorious aggression reveals an unexpected ecological balancing act in the caves they inhabit. Their destructive rampages collapse unstable cavern ceilings prematurely, preventing the accumulation of methane pockets that could cause catastrophic explosions. The rubble they create provides nesting materials for various rock-dwelling Pokémon, while the newly opened spaces allow airflow that prevents toxic gas buildup. Ancient Unhurried miners would listen for Hydreigon roars before entering new shafts, not as a warning to flee, but as confirmation that the tunnels had been inspected by nature's volatile surveyors. Modern safety standards rightfully discourage such practices, but seismologists still study Hydreigon movement patterns to predict areas of underground instability. Their 6 wings generating distinct air current signatures when flying through structurally compromised chambers. Tyranitar's sandstream ability originates not from their skin, as commonly assumed, but from specialized sacs located near their diaphragm. Each inhalation draws in minute mineral particles from their environment, which are then charged with bioelectric energy before being expelled through pores along their spinal plates. This creates the iconic swirling storms that can reshape entire landscapes over time. Curiously, the composition of these storms mirrors the geological history of wherever the Tyranitar was born. Individuals from granite-rich regions produce coarser, more abrasive sands, while those hatched near limestone deposits generate smoother particulate that benefits certain desert flora. The legendary desert temples of Hoenn were actually constructed downwind from Tyranitar nesting grounds, their architects utilizing the constant, fine sand blasting to polish stone surfaces to mirror perfection, a technique that modern restoration efforts struggle to replicate without the living sand generators. When Salamence achieve their final evolutionary stage, their wing membranes undergo a fascinating molecular realignment. The collagen fibers arrange themselves in concentric circles, radiating from the wing joints, creating natural stress distribution patterns identical to those found in suspension bridge engineering. This allows their wings to self repair minor tears along these predetermined pathways, much like how our veins branch to bypass blockages. The phenomenon was first documented by a frustrated air traffic controller who noticed that injured salamence always returned to flight along predictable recovery timelines, regardless of wound severity, their biology having essentially evolved a maintenance manual written into their very flesh. Some aerospace engineers now study salamence wing biopsies to inspire more resilient aircraft materials, though the living tissue's complexity still defies full replication. Sitting at the edge of a secluded lake, where moonlight spills across the water like liquid silver, one might witness a Dragonite performing their seldom seen nocturnal grooming ritual. Using the fine claws of their wing thumbs, they meticulously comb through their own fur, separating each strand to distribute natural oils secreted from their pores. This isn't mere vanity. The oil contains compounds that neutralize static electricity, preventing disruptive discharges during high altitude flights. Whalers' logs from centuries past describe glowing Dragonite silhouettes far above storm clouds, their fur crackling with contained energy as they rode jet streams between continents. Modern atmospheric scientists have detected unusual electrical stability in flight paths frequented by Dragonite, leading to theories that their migratory routes may subtly influence regional weather patterns, gentle giants quietly maintaining balance in the skies they've traveled for millennia. The metallic ridges along Metagross's limbs serve as evolutionary data storage. Each microscopic groove in their alloy-like skin encodes information about environmental conditions during that growth period, creating a physical record of their life experiences. Scientists using specialized atomic force microscopes can read these ridges much like tree rings, reconstructing everything from childhood nutritional intake to exposure to specific mineral deposits. This explains why veteran Metagross make such excellent wilderness guides. Their bodies literally contain maps of every terrain they've traversed. Some ancient texts reference ironclad prophets that could predict earthquakes, likely observations of Metagross reacting to the strain patterns recorded in their own cellular metal structures before tremors became detectable to humans. As sleep's tide pulls you deeper, imagine the weightless drift of a dreepy suspended in midnight ocean currents, or the patient rhythm of a Kommo-o counting centuries between heartbeats beneath a volcano's quiet pulse. Somewhere, a Tyranitar's footfall sends ripples through bedrock that will reach the surface as mountains yet unborn, while above, a Salamence traces flight paths first mapped when continents wore different shapes. The world turns, and these magnificent creatures move through it, not as relics, but as living proof that wonder persists in the quiet places, the overlooked moments, the spaces between wakefulness and dreams, where all stories eventually return. Rest now, cradled in the knowledge that the night holds guardians, older than memory, wiser than time, kinder than legend remembers, and that tomorrow's sunlight will find them still there, keeping watch over a world they help make magical. The deep forests where Hydreigon nest are among the quietest places on Earth, not because life is absent, but because prey animals have evolved an instinctive hush when near their territory. Botanists studying these zones report that even the trees grow differently there, their bark developing thicker insulation against the occasional stray dark pulse energy that seeps into the soil. Over centuries, this has created groves with wood so dense it absorbs sound like a sponge, where the only audible noise is the occasional chime of Hydreigon's floating heads gently bumping together as they navigate between trunks. Their trifold consciousness creates a unique sleep pattern. While one head remains alert, the other two enter staggered rest cycles, meaning they've never fully asleep nor fully awake. Ancient scrolls from desert monasteries describe monks learning meditation from observing these rhythms, developing techniques to rest parts of their mind while maintaining awareness. Goodra's translucent mucus contains millions of microscopic crystals that align with the Earth's magnetic field, a biological compass that guides their seasonal migrations to mineral-rich hot springs. During heavy rains, these crystals fluoresce faintly beneath their slime layer, creating the illusion that the Pokémon is glowing from within as water activates their electromagnetic properties. Researchers analyzing this substance discovered it can remain chemically active for up to 17 years when properly stored, leading to its use in preserving delicate archaeological artifacts. There are accounts of entire libraries being saved from fires when quick-thinking custodians coated scrolls in Goodra mucus, the moisture-retentive gel protecting knowledge through flames that would have reduced parchment to ash. The segmented plates along a Kommo-o's arms aren't just armor, they're vibrational chambers that amplify specific sound frequencies. When clashed together during battle, they produce tones that can shatter boulders, but when rubbed slowly in calm moments, the same plates generate subsonic pulses that stimulate plant growth. Agricultural communities living near Kommo-o habitats often have remarkably fertile fields, their crops thriving on these imperceptible vibrations. Some traditional lullabies mimic the rhythmic scraping of Kommo-o scales, using carefully tuned metal instruments to recreate the soothing resonance that seems to ease both human and Pokémon restlessness. Paleontologists have found fossil evidence suggesting this trait dates back to prehistoric variants whose scales were tuned to different frequencies, perhaps an adaptation to environments where the very air resonated with ancient seismic activity. Dragapult's spectral dreepy aren't projectiles in the traditional sense. They're more like temporary extensions of the parent's consciousness, imbued with just enough autonomy to navigate while remaining psychically tethered. This explains why they always return after being launched, and why a Dragapult never loses track of them, no matter how far they travel. The wispy trails left behind aren't exhaust, but rather a visible manifestation of this psychic link thinning as distance increases. Sailors' legends tell of lost ships being guided to safety by mysterious, glowing streaks in foggy nights. Likely sightings of Dragapult patrolling coastal cliffs, their dreepy unconsciously tracing safe routes through hazardous waters. Modern neurology studies show that the brainwave patterns of sleeping Dragapult and their dreepy remain perfectly synchronized even when physically separated, suggesting a level of connection that challenges conventional understanding of individual consciousness. Baxcalibur's ice formations grow differently depending on environmental conditions. High humidity creates intricate fractal patterns resembling ferns, while arid climates produce dense glassy sheets that amplify sunlight into prismatic displays. Their dorsal fin contains a network of microscopic channels that circulate an antifreeze protein, allowing precise control over ice morphology. Alpine cultures developed ice harvesting techniques by observing how Baxcalibur sculpts frozen structures, learning to read the subtle variations in crystal formations to predict weather patterns. During particularly cold winters, their exhalations leave behind suspended ice crystals that drift for hours, creating the phenomenon known as dragon frost. Delicate frozen laceworks that shimmer in moonlight before gently dissolving at dawn. The metallic feathers of a Garchomp's wings contain hollow channels that supercompress air during flight, creating miniature vortexes along their trailing edges. This not only enhances maneuverability, but also generates ultrasonic vibrations that disrupt predator sonar, an evolutionary advantage in the pitch-black caves where they originally evolved. Gemcutter's prize shed Garchomp scales for their unique ability to split light without traditional faceting. When polished, the natural microgrooves in each scale create rainbows that seem to move independently of the viewer's angle. There are unverified reports of certain desert tribes using these scales as navigation tools, their light bending properties allowing travelers to pinpoint water sources by reading atmospheric distortions invisible to the naked eye. Ancient volcanic glass often bears peculiar striation patterns that match the claw markings of Tyranitar, evidence that some populations once used molten rock flows as territory markers. As the lava cooled, these glyphs became permanently preserved, creating unintentional geological records of prehistoric migration routes. Modern Tyranidars still exhibit this behavior, leaving deep gashes in canyon walls or mountain faces that weather differently than surrounding stone, allowing researchers to track their movements decades later. The granular composition of their skin sheds constantly, each microscopic particle containing trace minerals that alter soil chemistry where they rest. Botanists have identified several rare plant species that grow exclusively in areas frequented by Tyranitar, their roots having adapted to absorb these mineral deposits as essential nutrients. The floating orbs surrounding a Metagross in motion aren't merely energy projections, they're three-dimensional representations of active thought processes, visual manifestations of cognitive load. Complex calculations appear as intricate geometric patterns swirling inside these spheres, while emotional states manifest as color shifts in the orb's outer layers. As some psychic type specialists can interpret these displays with startling accuracy, reading a Metagross's mood or intentions like one might interpret facial expressions. The oldest known Metagross on record, residing in the Hoenn region's meteor falls, has orbs that contain star maps dating back to its earliest memories, a living celestial archive that has helped astronomers reconstruct historical supernova events from centuries past. Rest now, Wrapped in these quiet wonders, where the boundaries between science and legend blur like mist over morning water. The world holds more mysteries than daylight reveals, but in dreams, you might glimpse the truth that every Pokemon carries within them eons of whispered secrets, written in scales and feathers, encoded in light and sound, and the slow turning of the earth itself. Sleep and know that these guardians of balance continue their ancient work, as constant as tides, as patient as stone, as endless as the star-strewn sky above their quiet, watchful forms. The peculiar way a Hydreigon's three heads move in perfect synchronization isn't just coordinated hunting behavior. It's the result of a shared nervous system that extends beyond their physical bodies, creating an invisible web of bioelectrical signals humming through the air around them. Researchers measuring these fields have discovered they can temporarily disrupt radio transmissions within a 3-mile radius, a phenomenon early aviators once attributed to dragon's breath interference. When a Hydreigon sleeps, its central head remains alert while the other two enter deep rest, rotating this vigilance in shifts that ensure constant awareness, a trait shared by some ancient guard dragons in Colossian tapestries, always depicted with one eye open. The faint bioluminescence along a Kommo-o's scales pulses in time with its heartbeat during mating displays, creating rhythmic light patterns that can synchronize with others in its clan, turning entire valleys into shimmering seas of coordinated glow. These displays serve both as courtship and as territorial markers, with older Kommo-o developing unique signature pulses that younger individuals incorporate into their own patterns, a living cultural tradition passed down through generations. The metallic plates covering its body aren't armor in the traditional sense, but rather crystallized sound waves, layer upon layer of vibrational energy made solid through a process modern scientists still struggle to replicate. When struck, these plates produce tones that can shatter boulders, or conversely, heal fractures in nearby stone, a duality that ancient Alolan kahunas utilized in both construction and conflict resolution ceremonies. Beneath a Dragapult's translucent hull, one can sometimes glimpse the faint outlines of Dreepy swimming in some invisible current, not merely carried, but existing in a quantum state between material and spectral forms. This allows them to phase through solid objects when launched, explaining why no impact craters are found at their attack sites. The oldest Dragapult specimens develop a peculiar patina on their wingtips, not from age, but from accumulated dimensional friction, as each hyperspeed dash leaves microscopic traces of folded space-time clinging to their bodies like cosmic dust. Some researchers speculate this buildup may be what eventually allows elderly Dragapult to vanish entirely, becoming one with the slipstreams they've spent lifetimes traversing. The spectral flames of a Hisuian Goodra's shell don't produce heat in the conventional sense. Instead, they absorb thermal energy from their surroundings, creating localized cold spots that make the air shimmer with suspended ice crystals. These flames burn brightest during snowfall, feeding on the latent energy released when water changes state, which explains why these Pokemon become more active in blizzard conditions while others seek shelter. The viscous slime coating its body contains millions of dormant microorganisms that spring to life when exposed to moonlight, transforming the ooze into a bioluminescent navigational aid during nocturnal migrations, a process that leaves glowing trails visible for hours before fading at dawn. The segmented plates along a Baxcalibur's spine function like organic heat exchangers. When hunting in volcanic regions, they clamp shut to prevent overheating, while in icy habitats, they flare open to radiate excess warmth. This same adaptation allows them to regulate the temperature of their frozen blade tails with incredible precision, maintaining an edge sharp enough to cleave glaciers, yet never melting under friction. Ancient texts from the Paldea region speak of ice that cuts fire, likely referring to how Baxcalibur can momentarily supercool their tails to such extremes that contact with lava creates instantaneous obsidian formations. The peculiar way their foot claws curl inward isn't just for traction, it creates perfect snowshoe like distribution when walking on powder, while the hooked tips emerge only when scaling ice walls, leaving characteristic crescent shaped gouges that climatologists use to track historical glacier movements. When a group of Baxcalibur rest together, their synchronized breathing creates harmonic vibrations that resonate through the permafrost, a natural sonar system alerting them to intruders or unstable ground, and possibly the origin of legends about Singin' Mountains. The floating debris surrounding an Archluden isn't random rubble. Each fragment maintains precise electromagnetic alignment with the others, forming a dynamic shield matrix that can reconfigure itself in milliseconds to deflect attacks from any angle. These hovering shards originate from the Pokemon's own body, continuously shed and replaced like metallic skin cells, with older pieces eventually losing cohesion and crumbling to dust. The glowing cables running along its limbs aren't just for show, they're superconducting pathways that allow Archludon to redirect excess energy from its electrical attacks into structural reinforcement, temporarily becoming nearly indestructible during thunderstorms. Civil engineers study the unique lattice structure of its horn, which grows in self-repairing fractal patterns that inspired breakthroughs in earthquake-resistant architecture. During mating displays, competing Archaludon will deliberately overload these systems, creating spectacular light shows as excess energy arcs between their bodies, a dangerous courtship ritual that sometimes fuses their floating shield fragments together into permanent crystalline bridges between individuals. The gelatinous body of a Dragalge contains over 200 distinct toxins, each stored in separate cellular compartments that only mix when released, a chemical library accumulated from all the poisonous seabed flora it's consumed over centuries of evolution. What appears to be kelp growing from its back is actually a symbiotic organism, a highly evolved relative of common seaweed that filters heavy metals from the water, which the Dragalge then incorporates into its own neurotoxic defenses. The mottled patterns on its skin aren't fixed. They shift in response to water pollution levels, making wild Dragalge living near industrial areas develop dramatically different coloration than their pristine water relatives. Marine biologists use these living pollution maps to track oceanic contaminant flows as the Pokemon's gradual migrations create a chronological record of toxin dispersion across entire coastlines. When threatened, Dragalge can release a milky substance that doesn't just poison attackers, it alters water viscosity, creating temporary zones of thickened sea that slow pursuers while allowing the poison type to glide through unimpeded, an adaptation that may explain old sailors' tales about treacherous patches of suddenly sluggish ocean. The metallic feathers of a corviknite grow throughout its lifetime, never molting, but instead continuously layering new growth over old. A single feather from an elderly individual might contain decades of microscopic strata, like the rings of a tree. Blacksmiths once prized these feathers as natural alloys that could be worked cold, their unique crystalline structure allowing reshaping without heat until conservation laws protected the species. The reason Corviknight can fly while wearing massive armor becomes clear when observing their takeoff. They don't just flap wings, but momentarily manipulate local gravity fields, a skill shared by few Pokemon outside the legendary category. This explains why their nests always form perfect geometric shapes, regardless of branch arrangement. The fledglings unconsciously warp space around them as they practice flight. Taxi Corviknight develop distinct flight patterns based on their roots. Some urban researchers can identify individual birds by the unique aerodynamic signatures left in cloud formations above their regular paths. The hexagonal patterns on a phalanx's shields aren't merely decorative, they're hardened segments of a collective hive mind exoskeleton, with each phalanx unit contributing to the overall structure's growth. When a troop rests, their shields interlock into a perfect defensive sphere with no gaps, a behavior that inspired ancient fortress designs. The peculiar way they move in unison stems not from training, but from shared nervous impulses conducted through the ground, their footfalls creating rhythmic vibrations that synchronize the group's movements across distances. Military historians note that some of the most effective ancient battle formations eerily resemble phalanx troop configurations, suggesting early warriors may have observed and copied their tactics. During rare, peaceful encounters between troops, they'll perform elaborate shield dances where their formations merge temporarily into larger geometric patterns, a behavior that mathematicians study as real world examples of emergent complexity. As your thoughts grow heavy with these quiet marvels, remember that the world remains full of such mysteries, each Pokemon a living library of evolutionary wisdom, every adaptation a poem written in flesh and bone across millennia. Sleep now, cradled in the knowledge that these wonders continue their ancient rhythms just beyond your window. The slow beat of wings through clouded skies, the patient turning of tides against rocky shores, the soft glow of bioluminescent patterns tracing forgotten stories in the dark. Rest and dream of deeper truths waiting beneath scales and steel and starlight, always present, always patient, as enduring as the earth itself. Dreepy, those spectral dragon remnants drifting through moonlit ruins, appear weightless not because they lack substance, but because their molecular structure has partially phased into another dimension, leaving only faint gravitational tethering to our world. This explains why they effortlessly glide against strong winds. Their bodies exist slightly out of sync with conventional physics. Ancient texts describe them as the lingering breath of fallen dragons, suggesting they may be the spiritual echoes of extinct dragon Pokémon, forever seeking companions to continue their unfinished battles. The reason they compulsively collect small shiny objects relates to a dormant nesting instinct. In life, their original forms would decorate nests with metallic treasures to reflect moonlight onto eggs. When a Dreepy evolves into Dracloak, this spectral matter begins condensing back into physical form, a process visible in how their floating head gradually gains density over weeks, the hollow eyes slowly filling with bioluminescent fluid that pulses in time with lunar cycles. Researchers discovered that Dracloak's floating posture isn't random. It perfectly balances the weight distribution for carrying Dreekling passengers, with subtle adjustments made 30 times per second through imperceptible tail movements. The wisps trailing from their claws aren't merely aesthetic, they're sensory organs that detect air currents and temperature shifts, allowing navigation through total darkness. Some alpine villages still tell of lantern spirits that guided lost travelers during blizzards, likely sightings of Dracloak using their glowing markings to lead Dreepy through storms. Dragapult's torpedo like launching mechanism evolved from an ancient hunting technique where ancestral forms would propel themselves at aquatic prey like living harpoons. The indentations along their back aren't armor grooves, they're resonance chambers that amplify ultrasonic signals used to coordinate with their Dreepy before launch. When observing Dragapult skeletons, paleontologists found fusion points suggesting their ancestors had wings, the current wing structures being modified forelimbs that developed after their hunting styles shifted to projectile tactics. Those eerie whistling sounds during Dreepy launches, they're caused by precisely timed air vortices created by the tail fin vibrations, an unconscious communication method that helps the launched Dreepy calculate trajectory adjustments mid-flight. Moon phases affect launch distances. During full moons, Dragapult can achieve ranges up to 30% farther due to subtle gravitational interactions with the Dreepy's spectral nature. The crystalline growths on their foreheads are actually solidified dragon energy. When broken off, painlessly like antlers, they make superb conducting rods for certain electronics, though most countries prohibit harvesting due to conservation laws. Now consider Baxcalibur, that towering glacial presence, whose backplates aren't ice at all, but supercooled ceramic composites that remain frozen through nanotechnology like cellular processes. Each scale contains microscopic channels pumping cryogenic fluids at pressures that would shatter steel, yet the Pokémon moves with ponderous grace. Their signature glaive rush technique stems from an ancestral memory. Fossil evidence shows their prehistoric relatives hunted mammoth Pokémon by shearing through ice sheets with coordinated diving attacks. The red patterns on their underbellies serve a surprising purpose. They're thermal regulators that absorb ambient heat during blizzards, converting it into kinetic energy for sudden bursts of speed. When a Baxcalibur sleeps standing up, as they often do, their tail embeds itself into permafrost, drawing trace minerals into their system, a behavior that explains why they're only found near mineral-rich glaciers. Those thunderous footsteps that precede avalanches, they're not accidental. Baxcalibur deliberately triggers controlled snowslides to expose buried prey, using subsonic vibrations pitched precisely to destabilize snowpack without causing catastrophic collapses. The pseudo-legendary life cycle follows celestial patterns. Druddigan eggs hatch most frequently during solar eclipses. Kommo-o clutches emerge in sync with meteor showers, while Goodra offspring overwhelmingly birth during thunderstorms. This timing isn't coincidence. Each species subconsciously aligns reproduction with environmental conditions that will maximize their unique abilities. That iridescent sheen on Hydreigon's scales, It's caused by femtometer-thin metal deposits absorbed from their volcanic habitat, the same phenomenon that gives butterfly wings their structural coloration. When Hydreigon sleeps, thy scales mute to slate gray, not from pigment change, but because the nanoscale structures temporarily collapse until awakening. Salamence's wing membranes contain over 8 million microscopic blood vessels per square inch, giving them unparalleled aerial maneuverability, but making wing injuries catastrophically bloody. This explains their infamous temper. Evolution bred them to prioritize eliminating threats before damage can occur. Meteorologists note that wild salamence populations consistently avoid tornadoes, not by fleeing, but by flying precise counter-circles that disrupt forming vortices, likely an evolved survival tactic from their ancestral desert habitats. Tyranidar's sandstorm generation isn't a conscious ability. It's a side effect of their cellular metabolism, with each exhalation releasing microparticles of eroded bedrock from their digestive tract. Their armor grows in concentric layers, like geological strata. A single shed scale from an aged specimen can reveal decades of mineral intake patterns. The glowing markings along their back operate on bioluminescent principles similar to deep-sea creatures, except they emit in the infrared spectrum, allowing nocturnal communication invisible to most prey. Paleontologists uncovered fossils suggesting ancient Tyranidae reached sizes rivaling small mountains. Their skeletons show adaptations for redistributing tremendous weight, including hollow honeycombed bones reinforced with mineral matrices. Modern specimens retain remnants of this structure. Their bones are actually denser underwater due to porous chambers that flood for ballast. Now let your mind drift to the quiet marvel of Dragonite, that gentle giant whose anatomy defies conventional aerodynamics. Their ability to circle the globe in 16 hours stems not from raw speed, but from manipulating atmospheric pressure differentials. Their wings generate lift coefficients that should be physically impossible at their size. The antennae-like structures on their heads are actually hypersensitive electrostatic sensors. They navigate by reading planetary magnetic fields with enough precision to detect underground ore deposits from altitude. Marine biologists discovered that wild dragonites sing at frequencies that calm turbulent seas, an adaptation that likely developed to protect their shoreline nests from storms. Those songs follow mathematical patterns resembling prime number sequences. When analyzed as waveforms, they produce perfect fractals. Fishermen's tales of Dragonite rescuing shipwrecked sailors hold scientific merit. They've been observed deliberately carrying unconscious humans to shore, possibly mistaking them for injured offspring due to overlapping thermal signatures. Metagross's four-brain system operates on quantum entanglement principles. Each brain remains synchronized across any distance, allowing instantaneous tactical coordination. The cross-shaped scars on battle-worn specimens aren't wounds. They're growth lines where additional neural layers have crystallized through combat experience. Their floating locomotion works via controlled diamagnetism. Their bodies contain lattice structures that repel from planetary magnetic fields with pinpoint accuracy. When a Metagross mega evolves, its brains temporarily enter a fifth-dimensional state. Mathematicians analyzing their post-move battle patterns found they utilize non-Euclidean geometry impossible in normal space-time. The blue markings on their limbs glow brighter during complex calculations. Researchers using specialized cameras have captured these patterns, matching famous mathematical constants when Metagross solve advanced puzzles. As sleep's tide pulls you deeper, picture Goodra's translucent skin rippling with raindrops, each droplet held momentarily by capillary action before being absorbed directly into their bloodstream. Their mucus contains thousands of species of beneficial bacteria, an entire ecosystem that processes toxins into nutrients. During droughts, Goodra enter suspended animation by encasing themselves in rapidly hardening slime, reviving instantly when rain dissolves the cocoon. The stickiness of their secretions follows lunar tidal patterns, peaking during new moons when predator activity is highest. Field studies reveal wild Goodra singing complex rain-calling harmonies with polytoad choruses. The vibrations tailor atmospheric conditions to induce precipitation through heretofore unknown acoustic principles. Rest now, cradled in these quiet truths, the world breathing slowly around you, every shadow holding centuries of perfected survival, every rustling leaf whispering secrets older than mountains. Let the rhythm of scales against stone and wings against clouds lull you deeper, the earth spinning beneath you, carrying all these wonders forward through the night. The gentle sway of Hydreigon's three heads operates on a perfect neurological delay. Each head processes sensory information a fraction of a second apart, creating a continuous stream of environmental analysis. Their dark energy attacks actually manipulate weak nuclear forces at the subatomic level. Physicists have detected characteristic neutrino bursts during their Draco meteor attacks. The floating posture isn't true flight. They generate localized gravitational anomalies that reduce their effective mass by nearly 80%. Their infamous destructive tendencies stem from an evolutionary remnant. Ancient cave paintings depict Hydreigon ancestors using controlled cave-ins to trap prey. Their modern counterparts retain this geological instinct even in environments where it serves no purpose. Now imagine Kommo-o's scales vibrating at precisely 432 Hz when at rest, a frequency once believed by ancient cultures to promote healing. Each scale contains microscopic channels that guide sound waves across their body like a living musical instrument. When they clang their scales together, the resulting shock waves follow Fibonacci sequences. Mathematicians have recorded these patterns, matching prime number distributions found in crystallography. Their immunity to dragon-type attacks comes not from toughness. Their scales temporarily phase out of sync with dimensional frequencies used by dragon energy. During heavy rainfall, Kommo-o scales produce faint bioluminescence. Marine biologists suspect this may be a vestigial trait from when their ancestors inhabited submerged volcanic vents. Consider the way Dragapult's Dreepy nestle within its skull launchers. Their bodies enter a state of suspended animation until released, lowering their metabolic rate to near zero. Wind tunnel tests reveal Dragapult's head shape generates no measurable air resistance. Their entire physiology evolved for supersonic travel without sonic booms. The ghostly flames trailing behind them aren't fire. They're visible psionic energy trails created by mental calculations for trajectory adjustments at hypersonic speeds. Ancient naval logs describe sightings of Dragapult ancestors skimming storm clouds. Modern radar confirms they ride atmospheric pressure gradients like living missiles. Their Dreepy aren't offspring in the traditional sense. Spectral analysis reveals their semi autonomous extensions of the parent's consciousness, closer to thought forms than independent beings. Beneath Tyranitar's armored plates runs a network of mineral deposits that grow denser with age. Their bodies literally petrify over centuries, the oldest specimens having silicate concentrations rivaling metamorphic rock. Seismographs detect their footsteps up to 50 miles away, not from weight, but from piezoelectric charges generated by specialized foot scales. Their sandstorm ability originates in unique lung structures. They exhale through mineral filters that shear air molecules into charged particles. During solar eclipses, wild Tyranitar have been observed standing motionless for hours. Biologists theorize their circadian rhythms synchronize with celestial events lost to evolutionary memory. The cracks in their armor aren't damage. They're stress release channels that glow faintly when the Pokémon absorbs geothermal energy through its foot pads. Drift now into Salamence's dream of flight. Their wings unfold through a process more like memory alloy reconfiguration than biological extension. The red patterns on their wings contain magnetite clusters. They navigate using the planet's magnetic fields with precision exceeding atomic clocks. When a Salamence achieves mega evolution, its wing membranes become semi-permeable to gravity. Tracking devices show them achieving brief moments of actual mass negation during high-speed maneuvers. Their infamous destructive rampages correlate precisely with atmospheric pressure drops. They appear to suffer migraines from barometric changes that trigger instinctive terrain leveling behavior. Fossil evidence shows their ancestors had feathered wings. The modern leathery version developed only after the last ice age, possibly as thermal regulation against volcanic winters. Bicalibur's dorsal fin operates as a parabolic heat collector. Infrared imaging shows it focusing body heat into a precise beam used to melt ice sheets for hunting. Their frost breath doesn't come from lungs. Specialized organs extract thermal energy from the surrounding environment and invert it quantum mechanically. The blade-like tail maintains perfect crystalline alignment even after shattering. Molecular analysis shows that ice regenerates following fractal growth patterns identical to snowflake formation. During auroras, wild Baxcalibur align themselves along geomagnetic lines. Their bodies emit faint Cherenkov radiation when charged particles interact with their unique biochemistry. The grooves along their back aren't decorative. They channel sub-zero liquid cryogens through capillary action to maintain core temperature in extreme environments. Let these visions cradle you. Dragonite's wings cutting silent arcs through the ionosphere, Metagross solving fourth-dimensional equations in the glow of a nebula, Goodra's rain song resonating through ancient stone chambers. Every scale and shell and droplet carries millennia of refinement, every ability a symphony of physics and biology perfected across epochs. The world turns beneath you, whispering its endless patterns, prime-numbered wing beats, logarithmic slime trails, fractal ice spreading across midnight lakes. Rest now in this cradle of wonders, where every breath you take syncs with the tide of a distant Pokemon's heartbeat, where sleep comes as naturally as a Hydreigon's calculated destruction or a Salamence's first flight. The night holds centuries yet to unfold, but for now, there is only this quiet, this peace, this slow descent into dreams woven through with scales and starlight. Imagine now the way Hydreigon's secondary brains flicker with activity, each processing different sensory streams, while the central mind weaves them into seamless awareness. Their destructive tendencies stem not from malice, but from an overflow of synaptic connections. Every object they shatter represents an attempt to comprehend its physical boundaries through action where thought fails. The dark energy radiating from their scales shows up on spectrometers as inverted light, photons moving backwards through time, a phenomenon that explains their immunity to psychic attacks. Their wings are vestigial, yet still contain dormant genes that surface in rare mutations. Ancient texts speak of six-winged variants that could eclipse the sun with their shadow. Somewhere in a deep ocean trench, Goodra's gelatinous body adjusts its density to match the crushing depths. Their slime isn't just protective, it hosts symbiotic microbes that convert sulfur vents into nutrients, explaining why specimens near hydrothermal vents grow twice as large. The translucent horns act as tuning forks. Marine biologists have recorded them vibrating in harmony with undersea earthquakes. When threatened, their mucus forms temporary exoskeletons hardened by secreted metals. One researcher described watching a Goodra construct an emergency cobalt shell within seconds. Most fascinating are their rain rituals. Wild herds will synchronize mucus production before storms, creating floating rafts of biofilm that drift for miles, carrying spores and microorganisms to new habitats. Metagross's four brains operate in quantum superposition, each simultaneously independent and unified. Their footfalls leave geometric depressions in bedrock, not from weight, but from localized gravity distortion. The X-shaped scar on their chest isn't a battle wound. It's a sensory array that detects neutrinos and dark matter. When they mega evolve, their cognition escapes the present moment entirely. Eyewitness accounts describe them dodging attacks before trainers even issue commands, suggesting brief perception of future timelines. Their preferred sleeping surfaces are cold fusion reactor shielding. Captive specimens become visibly agitated when denied access to materials dense enough to block their gravitational emissions. Kommo-o's scales chime like cathedral bells because they're precisely that. Hollow resonating chambers tuned to specific frequencies. The sound waves they generate can shatter boulders not through force, but by finding and amplifying inherent structural weaknesses. Their fighting style appears erratic until analyzed frame by frame. Every movement follows the golden ratio, making their attacks mathematically inevitable. During mating displays, their scales fluoresce in Fibonacci sequences. Researchers believe this proves their nervous system operates on quantum computational principles. The hardest substance in their body isn't their claws, it's the enamel coating their tongues, evolved to safely contain the plasma they generate during battle. Dragapult's spectral passengers aren't ghosts, they're self-contained bioplasmic constructs modeled after its juvenile form. High-speed cameras reveal the launching process as actually a quantum entanglement event. The projectiles remain physically connected to Dragapult through invisible force filaments. Their invisibility stems from light bending around a personal gravitational well. Infrared imaging shows their true mass is 300% larger than visible appearance suggests. Ancient cave paintings depict them with feathered crests. Modern DNA analysis confirms they lost these when their habitat shifted to dense forests, where streamlined profiles provided survival advantages. The light inside Garchomp's dorsal fin isn't bioluminescence. It's Cherenkov radiation from particles moving faster than light through their specialized tissues. Their terrifying speed comes from more than muscle. They momentarily reduce their mass by converting matter into dark energy, leaving charred footprints where space-time briefly warps. Sandstorms don't obscure their vision. They see through the particulate using echolocation at frequencies that induce panic in prey species. Fossil records show their ancestors could fly. The wing membranes became the distinctive fin structures through a process called adaptive skeletal repurposing. When you next see a Dragonite guiding lost ships, know their navigation isn't instinct, it's calculation. Their flippers contain magnetoreceptors sensitive enough to detect tectonic shifts days before earthquakes. That perpetual smile hides a secondary jaw structure, emergency oxygen storage allowing dives to 30,000 feet. Their fur isn't for warmth. It's a fractal antenna system collecting atmospheric data their brain processes into weather predictions with 99.8% accuracy. As sleep gathers you closer, picture Duraludon's metal bones growing like crystalline vines. Their structural integrity comes from carbon nanotubes woven through aluminum matrices. They don't sleep so much as defragment, standing motionless while their biomechanical systems run diagnostics and repairs. The steam from their joints isn't waste heat, it's a coolant system recycling liquid gallium through capillary channels. When they roar, the sound contains ultrasonic frequencies that weaken the molecular bonds in nearby rocks. Their territorial displays literally reshape landscapes over time. Rest deeper now, where Goodra's rain drums lullaby rhythms on ancient stones, where Metagross's gravity waves ripple through your dreams like pond reflections, where Hydreigon's reversed photons weave tapestries of negative starlight. The night is long, and these patient creatures have waited millennia to share their secrets with your sleeping mind. Let their truths settle into you, the way Tyranitar's armor remembers supernovas, how Salamence's wings hum with forgotten constellations, why Baxcalibur's ice never truly melts, but merely waits between states of being. Here in this borderland of facts and dreams, every exhalation synchronizes with a Pokemon's distant heartbeat. Every thought drifts like Kommo-o's scale chimes through midnight forests. The world turns, these magnificent creatures continue their ancient dances, and you, perfectly suspended between wonder and rest, need only breathe and fade into their eternal stories. The quiet is theirs now, the peace is yours. Allow yourself to drift deeper, where the whispers of Kommo-o's scales resonate not just through forests, but through the very fabric of time itself. These ancient Pokemon, draped in armor that hums with the frequencies of long-lost battles, carry within their scales the echoes of civilizations that once thrived and fell. The rhythmic clinking isn't merely a defensive mechanism, it's a language, a coded symphony that tells stories of resilience and survival. Kommo-o's scales aren't just hardened keratin, they're layered with microscopic piezoelectric crystals that convert movement into electrical pulses, allowing them to communicate across vast distances without a sound audible to human ears. Their roars, often mistaken for mere displays of dominance, are actually complex harmonic sequences that can alter the emotional states of those who hear them, calming allies and unnerving foes with equal precision. Drift further now, where the towering form of Tyranitar casts long shadows under a moonlit sky. This massive Pokémon, often feared for its destructive power, holds within its rocky armor a history written in geological layers. The plates along its back aren't just for protection, they're archives, strata of compressed minerals that store information about the environments it has traversed. Tyranitar's body temperature fluctuates with the tectonic activity beneath its feet, and its roar isn't just a sound, it's a seismic pulse that can trigger landslides or stabilize fault lines, depending on its intent. Its tail, often dismissed as a simple counterbalance, is a finely tuned sensory organ capable of detecting vibrations from miles away, allowing it to navigate even the most treacherous terrains with ease. Now imagine the vast open skies where Salamence soars, its wings cutting through the air with the grace of a creature born to rule the heavens. Those wings, often admired for their sheer size, are marvels of evolutionary engineering. The veins that run through them aren't just structural supports, they're conduits for electromagnetic energy, allowing Salamence to harness the planet's magnetic field for navigation and flight. Its scales shimmer not just from reflected light, but from the microscopic prisms embedded within them, which scatter sunlight into patterns that can disorient predators and mesmerize prey. Salamence's roar isn't just a call, it's a sonic boom that can clear storm clouds or summon lightning, a testament to its mastery over the elements. Its eyes, often glowing with an otherworldly light, can see ultraviolet and infrared spectrums, granting it a vision that spans beyond human comprehension. As you sink deeper, let the gentle presence of Goodra envelop you, its slimy exterior belying a heart of profound gentleness. This Pokémon, often misunderstood for its unassuming appearance, carries within its mucus a library of biochemical compounds capable of healing wounds, purifying water, and even neutralizing toxins. Its antennae, often thought to be simple sensory organs, are actually finely tuned receptors that can detect changes in atmospheric pressure, humidity, and even the emotional states of those around it. Goodra's rain, often seen as a mere byproduct of its hydration, is a carefully orchestrated symphony of droplets that carry pheromones to communicate with others of its kind or to mark territory. Its tail, though soft and flexible, contains a dense network of muscles that can generate enough force to create shock waves in water or air, a defense mechanism as elegant as it is effective. Picture now the quiet majesty of Metagross, its four-legged form standing as a testament to the fusion of biology and technology. This Pokémon, born from the union of two Beldum, carries within its crystalline brain a computational power surpassing even the most advanced supercomputers. Its four legs, often mistaken for mere appendages, are actually independent processing units that allow Metagross to multitask with unparalleled efficiency. The cross-shaped mark on its face isn't just a decorative feature, it's a sensory array capable of detecting gravitational waves, electromagnetic fields, and even the faintest traces of psychic energy. When Metagross levitates, it isn't using telekinesis, it's manipulating the magnetic fields around it, creating a cushion of air that allows it to move with silent precision. Its claws, often feared for their sharpness, are also finely tuned instruments capable of analyzing the molecular composition of anything they touch. Now allow yourself to drift into the realm of Hydreigon, a Pokémon as enigmatic as it is fearsome. Its three heads, often seen as a symbol of chaos, are actually perfectly synchronized organs that operate in harmony to process sensory information, strategize, and execute complex maneuvers. The wings that sprout from its arms aren't just for flight, they're also heat exchangers, regulating its body temperature by absorbing or dissipating thermal energy. Hydreigon's roar, often dismissed as a mere display of power, is a carefully modulated sonic wave that can disrupt the nervous systems of its foes or amplify the psychic abilities of its allies. Its eyes, glowing with an eerie light, can see into the ultraviolet spectrum, allowing it to detect patterns invisible to most creatures. The energy that radiates from its body isn't just a byproduct of its power, it's a controlled emission of dark energy, which it uses to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. As you continue to sink into this ocean of knowledge, let the presence of Dragapult guide you, its sleek form cutting through the air like a shadow. This Pokémon, often admired for its speed, carries within its body a propulsion system that rivals the most advanced aerospace technology. The fins along its tail aren't just for stability, they're also aerodynamic surfaces that allow Dragapult to maneuver with unparalleled agility. Its eyes, often glowing with a soft light, can detect infrared radiation, allowing it to see in complete darkness or through smoke and fog. The projectiles it launches from its head aren't just physical objects, they're encapsulated bursts of psychic energy that can home in on targets with pinpoint accuracy. Dragapult's roar, often heard as a low hum, is actually a carefully modulated frequency that can disrupt the equilibrium of its foes or calm the nerves of its allies. Finally, let the quiet presence of Baxcalibur surround you, its icy exterior belying a heart of ancient wisdom. This Pokémon, often feared for its glacial power, carries within its body a reservoir of cryogenic energy that can freeze entire landscapes with a single breath. The plates along its back aren't just for protection, they're also heat sinks, capable of absorbing and dissipating thermal energy to maintain its internal temperature. Baxcalibur's claws, often admired for their sharpness, are also finely tuned instruments capable of carving through ice and stone with equal ease. Its roar, often heard as a deep rumble, is actually a carefully modulated frequency that can induce hypothermia in its foes or create protective ice barriers around itself and its allies. The energy that radiates from its body isn't just a byproduct of its power, it's a controlled emission of cryogenic energy, which it uses to manipulate the environment around it. As you drift deeper into the embrace of these magnificent creatures, let their stories weave through your dreams, their truths settling into the quiet corners of your mind. The night is long, and these patient beings continue their ancient dances, their secrets waiting for those who listen closely enough. Rest now, perfectly suspended between wonder and peace, and let their eternal stories carry you into the depths of sleep. The quiet is theirs now, the peace is yours.